but we can always then tweet the video out later. All right. Hey, team. Um, it's the 3rd of April, 2024. It's Gimbalabs Open Spaces. Let's change the date right here. Great. We get together at 14:30 on Wednesdays and Thursdays to build stuff together, to figure things out. And the way we usually start is by setting a timer for just a couple minutes to throw some ideas on the board. If you have ideas, you can add them here, or you can drop them into the chat and I'll paste them. I know that Ken already shared one right before we went live. And yeah, we'll see you in 2 minutes. All right. Hey, hey. And hey, welcome, Claudio, Harsha. Good to see you guys.
Hey,
Let's do a quick run across the screen. So Ken, is it okay that I threw your idea into the main room so we can all take a quick look at this together?
yeah, sure. Um, I've got a link. Let me just a second here.
Cool. Yeah. And so we'll get to this after we review the other things here, but I think that's a great
Okay,
place for us to start today.
yeah, that's fine.
Um, how about review proposal VAC? Who's this one from?
That's me.
This is the one in the Discord that you dropped in earlier this week.
Both in Discord, yeah. So
Excellent.
if you read it, I mean, and Sebastian read it, and everyone in Discord read it. So I don't know. It's like, do we need a review, or we just maybe, in my opinion, it's you know, when we need it, we can do it. If there are no objections, you know.
Cool. Is there a budget attached to these proposals, either in terms of time or funding?
Not yet. As I said, the VAC is a proposal which is like we. I hope there will be. There's not much work there. You just have to be like the main purpose is accountability, and uh, I don't think there has to be a budget, at least for now, for this. But for like translation of educational materials, yeah, it'd be awesome if it went towards, for example, contributions to being a facilitator at Gimbal Labs and getting incentives for writing the courses.
Excellent. So I think the best way to think about this, these are ready for the whole group when the whole group has something substantial to decide on. right? And when I say substantial, I think in terms of, are we asking people to commit time to doing something? Or are we trying to get some funds to pay for different efforts, right? And so once either, if this is pretty low key and the whole proposal is that somebody spends an hour or two to do something, that should be a pretty easy proposal for us to read through and say, okay, yeah, go
All
for
right,
it,
all right, all
right?
right, yeah.
And then obviously here bring a budget and then let's see how quickly this team can move through the consent process for a real formal proposal.
Yeah, all right. So for me, the first step would be to create a section of Gimbalabs website so that I can promote this course in the language space. And
Okay.
so yeah, it's about writing and maybe content making. So it's not a lot, not much time. I can do it for free. Just some kind of collaboration and guidance on how to do this better. Maybe we should do this asynchronously, if you don't mind. If
Yeah,
it's like with the scope of Gimbal, yeah.
exactly. So you've got next steps and you can consult with anybody. And I'm glad we're taking a few minutes on this right now, everybody. Thank you, because this is core to what we do here. So I think these stickies are well suited for some breakout room today if anybody wants to help refine those details to get these to the stage where we look at it as a group, right? And so Alex, I think you've got great next steps. You don't ever have to consult anybody at these next steps, but remember, that's always an option. You can ask
All right.
anybody for advice.
Maybe it makes sense then to move the VAC proposal to the main room and just spend 5 minutes to review the mechanism I'm proposing so that just the people are aware.
Great.
Yeah, because I think we can implement this right now, but we just don't have a use case.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay. Cool. So now that's two great things we can do together. Next, moving left to right. Just quick announcement. We do have the Treasury prototype live. We could start playing with it soon. But Sebastian and I took it for a test drive. We're ready to go. This is connected to this work because we already have approval to use some of our funds for writing PPBL 2024 content. So if we have time today or certainly tomorrow, I'd love to look at this with anybody who wants to help write that content and we can start to do it. And Harsha?
It's the same thing. It's just an extension of last week.
Rock and roll. All right, cool. So, hey, let's start with these guys right here, and then we've got a couple of different things we could go out to. I'll stop sharing screen, and Ken, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, just a second here. Well, this is mostly I just played around with what the homepage could look like from our conversations last week. Because I had some concerns about it being a little bit hard to see the information. And this is a little site I wrote up in Elm. Yeah, so it's I didn't add functionality yet for like reflowing things if the screen size changes. So depending on your screen size, it might look different. But I've actually got it here if you want to see. Like, so the idea is that if you have spaces that aren't being occupied by content that's important for people to see, then you'd probably want it to be dulled out in comparison to places where you've got relevant information so that the information pops out. Like I don't know, I'm more interested in what people think about just this sort of layout or style, because also for the the knowledge management stuff. If I'm interested in possibly doing something that can replace use cases that we would use Miro for as well. So like this same sort of idea could be used for that as well. What do people think? If people have feedback, I'd like to hear it.
It's really cool looking. Yeah, I think it's pretty neat. What's everybody else thinking?
I'm thinking that if you scroll the screen, the left top blue square behaves kind of strange. So I don't know, is it intended or is
Well,
it?
yeah, the top blue square is just showing the viewport information. So you've got the entire size of the web page content, and then the viewport is the rectangle where your screen is on the viewport. And so I'm going to use that in order to make it so that you can reflow the content based on the screen size. So like people with different screen sizes can see everything nicely, but that's a little bit more work than just throwing something together that gives the concept. And also like for the calendar and blog and solutions thing, the top section should move along with the page, and so that's always visible and available. Like if you want some things that you can always find, like we were talking another day about how the calendar is important. And so like if it's something that you can always see no matter where you are, that's helpful for users of the content.
Yeah, I really like the website. It looks in the style of Cardano.
Thanks.
Maybe I don't know if it's true. The news went out on 1st of April, maybe, so that they were changing and branding Cardano in a new way. I'm not sure if it's not true, or if it's true, could be integrated into the color theme or some other way.
Well, we were talking about bulletin boards, and so I just sort of tried to throw it together like make it look more like a bulletin board.
Yeah, it looks really nice. Yeah.
So where this is a mock-up, but like we can imagine these sticky notes being pretty dynamic. How would we handle data if we went a direction like this?
I guess my thought is you could have JSON files or Markdown files and then have it dynamically load them into the different notes. Like so you would just need to push content to a specific folder in the repository on GitHub, and then you can just have it automatically load the stuff into the page that it needs to. That's where my thought process was.
And that's I've never used Elm before. That's pretty straightforward to integrate that with Elm.
Yeah, like Elm is basically like Haskell, but it's a lot simpler and more straightforward. Like it could also be used as a gateway for people trying to learn Haskell too, because it's got some differences. Like it's not lazy evaluation for the most part. It's yeah, strict evaluation, and it doesn't have type classes and stuff. So some of the higher level features of Haskell, but it's the syntax is very much similar.
And how are you imagining these add item boxes to work?
I don't know. I'm not 100% sure. Like I the one thing that I was thinking that maybe a little bit like maybe not the most streamlined idea is you can actually change stuff around on the page as a user. Maybe that's stored in your browser local storage, and then um, maybe you can download a file that will, maybe a JSON file or something that will have the new setup of content, and then maybe push that into the GitHub repository. Like that's how I'm thinking of it, unless there's a dynamic backend. Like if you have a
Right.
server that's more, I don't know, it's easier to do that kind of thing. But
Yeah, in my browser session, I can rearrange these things, but it's not saved anywhere. Honestly, that's kind of keeping with the Gimbalabs ethos is we're going to try to minimize what we need in terms of like user data, even if it's the position of stuff on a page. Yeah, it's cool. It's fun to think about, and this is unique looking. I think it's really compelling. Obviously, we can play with the individual sticky notes and all that, but like the idea is very cool. And I can't help thinking like how cool would it be if somebody comes to this and clicks on the add item button and basically a dialogue pops up that says, "Oh, you want to add something? Okay, cool. Here's how to get involved," right? Like join us. Yeah, everything you see on this page is the work of the Gimbalabs community. And here's how you can jump in.
there's also the possibility of integrating with the Notion API. Like I looked into it a little bit. I'm not sure how easy that would be, but it's an option.
Very nice. I know Nelson's been looking at that too, as we've been looking at Andamio. So yeah, that's a compelling one to be thinking about. What's anybody else thinking? I mean, so what would be next here? Is it worth it to draft a proposal to move this direction and build a subcircle to support it? What do you think?
Yeah, like I'm happy to keep working on it. I do need to think about finding some compensation for it. But yeah, like I'm open to whatever is possible.
Cool. Yeah, I would say, right, like this is an exciting option. And the question now is, how much do we prioritize it? And that's a collective decision. And so I think the way we decide what's possible and what actually happens is this proposal process, right? Here's a proof of concept of what the Gimbalabs website might be. To really bring it into production would require these people, this amount of time, and these funds. And then as a group, we look at that. That's a proposal, and we take it through the consent process.
Yeah, I was for one thing, I was thinking that just throwing this together wasn't much more work than actually putting the proposal together. So like I don't know, like thinking as far as
Right.
a visual proposal.
I've been thinking the
It's
same thing. Honestly, I had the exact same thought over the weekend. I was like,
yeah,
sometimes just
it's
easier to
seven
build something than to
it's
describe what it might be.
just over 700 lines of highly
Right.
vertically spaced code. So it's yeah.
Right. And so, but that's the thing, right? I think any proposal involving this is much easier to make because there's a proof of concept now,
Okay.
right? But still a plan for what's next has to be written, right? Like the what is it, you can answer it with a link. Here's what it is. Follow through with this, right? But in terms of dev hours budget and what the expectations would be moving forward, we ought to practice aligning on that collectively, and we have a process for that.
Yeah.
But this is dope, really cool to think about. Anybody else got further thoughts before we keep going?
There you go. Good morning,
Wow.
everybody.
Hey,
James, yes, great idea. But it's still, I think that the reason, one of the, I mean, I came late to the meeting and I saw we are discussing possible website. I mean, a possibility to make a website. I don't have the specifics if it is for so I would like to have you guys define the tensions that drove this to be a proposal and the drivers just try to practice in a little bit of a street. So can you elaborate on that, please?
yeah, Juan, Ken covered that when he started sharing this, so let's not go back to that now. But you're exactly right. In a proposal, that would be covered, right? So a driver is part of writing a proposal. He described informally why he built this and then just was sharing a quick demo, and kind of we're in the pre-proposal phase right now.
Understand. Yes, I'm not, I follow the initial part of the,
Yeah, that's okay. That's
right.
okay. Yeah, we're gonna, but we don't need to repeat ourselves in this,
Got you.
what we've got on the
Understand.
agenda. Yep. All right, should
Super.
we kick it over to Alex? Speaking of proposals.
Right. So how do I share screen? Should I share screen?
Sure, thanks.
Show captions. Yeah. Okay. Can you see my screen?
You everybody got it?
Yeah, so the proposal is voting and accountability circle. The name is provisional and just to, it doesn't maybe capture the idea. So yeah, the proposal driver is to provide robust mechanism for stakeholder engagement so that people can express their will. I'm doing this because this is interesting for me in a sense that here in Cardano, we could, one of our goals, the way I see it, is to build, to use this code is law paradigm, you know, to offer countries which tooling for building their institutions, because institutions are core to successful economies and well-being of people in the countries. Unfortunately, having strong institutions is something that is tied to good education and ethos of people living in the country, which is itself tied to having strong institutions, and it's a like chicken and egg problem. So it could be in the future that Cardano is that kind of catalyst for innovation and provide like the thing that provides tools that allow people to build these things in their countries. Just like pretty interesting for me because my country is like a good case in point in this regard. So just thinking about Gimbalabs and thinking about our driver. So in the driver of Gimbalabs, we have to provide open, safe spaces to learn, explore, and the rest of the things. And ultimately, voicing opinion in the open is, it feels safe because we know each other. But if you don't know the people well enough, it may be that the community has to be large, yeah. But we're talking about DREPs and just building this out. So someone may have valid concerns, but oftentimes, and it's a pretty like well-studied phenomenon, people just do not like to voice their concerns in the open. Most often because they are afraid to seem foolish or not knowing. It like requires quite a bit of courage to say the thing that is obvious. And when everybody thinks that this is obvious, these things tend to slip between the cracks and get lost in the context, and then huge errors appear, which like in retrospect seem just so stupid, and how none of people thought about this, but because of the shared responsibility and things like that. So the idea is, if we consider a proposal, we can think of it in two ways. Some proposals are minor, so there are no real objections, there's not much at stake, and we can just go through within one session, 2 sessions, I don't know. We can deliberate and all consent that the proposal, abstract proposal, not this proposal, is valid, and we should accept it and go forward with it. But some proposals may be subject to debate. Some proposals maybe some people will think that they are not good for the community. Some proposals may be too huge. So in this case, we could have a mechanism of voting. And so, yeah, basically what I'm trying to replicate is just a voting body, you know, the people who count the votes. And in case we have a proposal which we cannot agree upon, and I'm proposing simple mechanisms so that like if one community member expresses their concerns about the proposal and another community member supports their concerns, then we consider the proposal requiring extensive deliberation. And in this case, we create this temporary working group or temporary circle, which is called voting accountability circle. So what it does is just holds an election for this proposal. So the election requires people who vote, a voting mechanism, and like the process. So what we do, again, this to be discussed further sometime in the future, maybe now if we have time. So we define who are eligible to vote and how the vote is conducted. And then this VAC as a commission just oversees the vote. And then in the end, it reports like a jury, okay, this is the result of the vote. Depending on the situation and number of people at Gimbalabs and the proposal, we could at each case make a decision on it. So it could be like 3 guys who just ask in person, make calls with people, or ask in the private chat, what do you think about this? And unless we have quorum, we don't proceed with the proposal. So we kind of put it on hold. It's a vulnerability, so the proposals can be put on hold indefinitely if people just refuse to vote and the quorum is not achieved. But in any case, there's so many things to think about, and this is just a kind of scaffolding for such a mechanism, which could be used in the future for extensive deliberation, because often these things, and reading just public policy books about the United States, that rush decision in policy are very unwise, and often some people's interests get hurt or just not taken into account, and this leads to much worse consequences if just nothing was done. So yeah, that's the essence of the proposal. Hello?
We can hear you, yeah.
Juan wants to say something.
No, I hope I don't have no, I don't think I have hands up. No, I don't want to say anything. Want to listen to.
All right.
Alex, what's next for this proposal?
What's next is somebody makes a proposal which you think, or like any of the members of Gimbalabs thinks, we need extensive deliberation on this proposal. So in this case, this person has to, if they have these thoughts, they say something like in an open meeting when we discuss a proposal. I think I want to start a motion to consider this proposal like through the more complicated process and just not go with this in a couple of meetings and don't go with a simple consent process. And then if someone else supports them, then we go through with developing the rest of the proposal, how we're going to do this.
So the next step would be next time there is a new proposal, we test the process that you're suggesting here.
Yeah, a proposal we have doubts about so that we can test this process.
Okay. Next time we have a contentious proposal that plenty of people have doubts about, we can test this process.
Plenty, I wouldn't say plenty. I say that we should be open about this. I mean, this has to be kind of, we have to have consensus on that. How many people we consider like plenty? Is 2 people plenty, or is like it has to be like everybody anonymously should agree that this proposal has to go through the deliberate process?
Got it. So we're keeping our eyes out for an opportunity to test the process that you're describing.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Sounds good.
Thanks.
So in terms of action steps, there's nothing we have to do today.
Well, we could, but I don't see the necessity. We could, of course, have a running committee like this and call on it in case we have such a proposal, but I think it's kind of overkill. I just think we should just keep this in mind and yeah, look out for opportunities to test this.
Okay. Anybody have questions about that?
Any objections?
No, from my side, I like it. Like it because this is a mechanism that we need to explore and adapt to the day-to-day life of Gimbalabs in the community. So really good.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is really thoughtful stuff. Yeah. I can imagine lots of next steps like blog posts and stuff like you were describing, a communication. So
And I'm thinking, for example, how we can start a process of documentation, as you said.
yeah, good.
To tell the people outside of us, our organization, what we are doing in this area.
Right.
Considering the current state of issues of the ecosystem, of this intersects and all of this stuff. This will be a really good exercise, in my opinion.
Like it. And then in terms of that public facing documentation and ability to share these things, remember that we have a process for bringing this stuff into Notion. So Alex, can I invite you to the team Notion account so you can add this proposal there, and we can also support that goal of broader documentation?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome, thanks. And then Ken, when you're ready, when you've got a proposal around this one, same thing, right? As proposals keep emerging, we have the system that's the prerequisite for adding people to the Notion. We'll get you guys in there. Cool. So that brings us to, I think we got a couple of breakout rooms here, right? Proposal forming is ongoing for reviewing this one. We talked about that earlier. Andamio is ready to go for content creation. So I'd love to jump into a breakout room with anybody who wants to support that. And Harsha said, same as before, continuing to develop some thoughts around sustainability and funding. So thanks for that one. Before I open up at least 2 breakout rooms, Anybody want to add anything to the list? Okay. There's 2 rooms. What should we do here? Do we want to do some collaborative proposal forming here? Leave that on the recording, and I can jump over to education circle room, or vice versa. Looks like Harsh already jumped to the workspace.
I think maybe I have my doubts about this proposal. I kind of wait for inspiration for something to happen, you know, because what would be a good next step? Maybe a blog post in Russian that, hey, in Gimbalabs, because as I said before, my view on the courses is that students build them. We provide assignments and scaffolding, but ultimately, like the way to document things, I don't want to write documentation when there is already documentation existing. And in particular, in my case, like people from Russia tend to do things in English and then just speak Russian, but all documentation, well, it's too much effort to just maintain documentation in our language. And it's simpler to learn and practice English. So yeah, I think maybe a blog post in Russian saying that, hey, we are releasing like PPBL 2024 and you're welcome to join. And we provide support in Russian language, something like this. So yeah, I don't think I'm gonna just keep my mind on this at the moment. So I'm gonna join the Andamia session.
And are you in touch with Tutor from the Proxies team and some other communities?
No idea how is it.
Let me connect you guys on Discord, because he's also been thinking about writing Romanian and Russian content translations of some of what we're doing here.
All right, cool. Yeah.
So yeah, I think he's got a potential like Fund 12 collaboration in mind too. So let's
yeah.
let's improve that communication.
Yeah, thank you.
You know it. Okay, so check it out. If I can find this. We are ready to go with some course building, and it's pretty exciting. We have a wireframed but functional version of Andamio live right now, where we can start working on the Plutus PBL course. Some of the formatting and stuff needs to be fixed immediately. As you can see, I don't love this spacing right here. It looks like we have some centered text, for example. So the UI is still in development, but the flow of how it feels to build a course in here is ready to go. We've got modules. These are what we've been talking about in our Plutus PBL planning meetings over the last few weeks. And each of them has learning targets. These are the draft learning targets that we've talked about in previous sessions, but they can be changed, okay? And we can even move them around if we need to, okay? And this is where we're going to be able to start writing lesson content as well. So every learning target can have a lesson. Ready to create one for this learning target? Sure, let's do it, right? Where we can start to add content, and we can add video links, and we can publish it when we're ready. So the other thing we're able to do is add contributors to this course. Jingles and Hinson are already contributors. I was taking Hinson for a little test drive of this earlier today for Aiken PBL, where I happen to be a contributor, and he started this course. So we're just getting started here. But anybody who wants to, grab this link right here, and you can sign in with Discord. Okay, we opted for our first and only authentication method to be Discord, because we're just testing this with everybody who's in our circles already, and we know that we can find you guys there. Okay. So take a moment if you're interested in getting into this. Log in and then let me know, either by unmuting or just dropping in the chat, and I'll add you as a contributor to this course so you can start to play with it. So there's Nelson, ready to go. Oh, there it is. Anybody have questions at this step right here? Okay, let me jump back over to Notion for just a minute, where we've been planning the course. So what you just saw on my screen is that we've got modules 100 through 103 initialized inside the course. We can still edit their titles. We can still give them different numbers, and we can still change the learning targets, okay? And then looking ahead, we also have the opportunity to play around with these future modules. And so this is a place where this is where we get to think big. I think a lot of the creative work happens here, right? Once we have the idea of what we're going to teach and we're settled on the learning targets, writing the content is pretty straightforward. It just has to be done. But thinking about at a high level, what story are we going to take learners through? This is what we're still working on right now. So as people jump in, feel free to play around, okay? If you're a contributor to the course in the Andamio platform and you want to just make a module to explore an idea, go for it, okay? And let's think about which ones we might add together right here. So where we left off is in the 100 level modules. We're going to have people get started. This hasn't changed much. Write a version of the PPBL faucet validator in one or more languages. They'll be able to choose optionally from a list. And what's ultimately on this list is still being figured out. Build a couple of really simple introductory transactions. I shouldn't say too simple. I mean, we are going to get them playing around with validators. And then after we do those introductory things, hey, we're glad you're here, right? And a lot of courses start with this, but we're showing people, hey, you're going to get in here and do things. Hey, now that you're already doing something, right? Now that you already started the video game, here's the real quest. Okay, what are we going to do in this course, right? Understand Cardano applications, collaborate in these open source projects we're building, and start, if you want to, participating at Gimbalabs. So with all that in mind, what do we want people to do next? This is where we left off. But this is by no means complete. What do you think? Like this right here, right? Just think for yourself. If you're on a journey as a dev, what do you want to know how to do first, right? Build a little, some kind of any little front end so that you can start playing around with ideas? Or are you more excited just to know how to mint a token And therefore, maybe just Cardano CLI and Game Changer are enough to get you started on that. What gets you most fired up? Juan, what do you think?
And I think it's phenomenal. Great. Thing is, it's great. You can start getting with 100 and then review everything you know. And if you feel that you have holes, just expand on the material documentation available and continue with the first thermal contract, which is 101. And then, build from there. I'm so happy that we don't have to do all the work on the back end of putting the node together and all that. We can go straight directly to practice and learn, because it was devastating to spend time and effort learning, of course, all the time learning. But it's great to have this level of much maturity of the whole project. Yeah, thanks. That's it.
Thanks, man. So sometimes it's easier to form an opinion if you have something to disagree with. Okay, so I'm gonna try telling a story here, and you guys tell me if you would tell the story a different way. Okay, this is fun. So I'm gonna argue that the modules should be given in this order. Build a little bit of app template first, okay? And then move on to minting tokens. Why? Well, because I can imagine this working. We've already shown people a smart contract, and we've already shown people how to build a couple of transactions using Cardano CLI. So they've got that. Now, why not do just enough to complete the loop and say to people, hey, if you've got a validator and you understand the basics of transactions, now here's how you would build an app. It doesn't have to be a beautiful app. We just have to show people just enough that they can see these transactions with this validator, right? And wherever it was compiled from, just a validator. And we can give that to people, right? So in module 201, here's the story. What if we said, here is a front end that works with the PPBL faucet that you built in modules 101 and 102. It's not beautiful, but it shows you one example of how to build a full stack Cardano application. Now that you've seen it, we can do more. Did I get somebody to have an idea? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm looking back at the very awesome, actually, the very, like this book, which is called Cardano Smart Contracts with Helios, which actually makes me uninspired to write anything, because everything that is needed, like if we consider working just with Helios, and I know just working in Helios is like you do everything in TypeScript, so like you do everything in a bad way. But still, for just starting out, for someone who knows and doesn't want to deal with all the compilation and big stuff from Haskell and Rust, it's pretty awesome. So, I mean, I just don't know how to share it. I have PDF on my hard drive. And like this item that you're showing, build a front-end app template. What they have in this book is production troubleshooting, blockchain monitoring, validators. There was some kind of end-to-end application. Maybe it's not in the book. Oh yeah.
Makes me want to change the title just a little bit, like build a front end. I think this is the idea.
Yes, language.
I see Henson's hand too. What are you thinking?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, overall, I agree with the direction, but there is one concern I have is, would it be kind of drifting the attention to be like the traditional front end development stuff, and perhaps there's a chance that the student will get stuck in just the front end standard things that this is a concern I have, and not sure if it is, yeah, something we would love to experience.
I agree with that. So I think that's why I said, like, for example, here's a front end. I think it's important that we provide it, right? We don't want people who don't have this expertise to get stuck
Yeah.
on this, but we do want to offer the chance to see a full stack. Yeah, and that's right. And which stack do you show, right? If we use TypeScript and Next and Mesh, is that okay? Or is that taking us way off course? I saw Nelson's. Yeah, Nelson, what do you think?
Yeah, for this particular one, we are okay. Okay, we are going to go with mesh. I think we should explain a little bit, like why are we choosing mesh? Why does tools like mesh exist, right? And maybe we can brainstorm with him, brainstorm with Hinton to get the story right. But here's an idea I was thinking. When we try to use it 30 and just connect the wallet using the extension, browser extension, uh, it can be done. It's all right, but you will see that those APIs provide unserialized CBOR, and uh, like we can show that it's inconvenient to directly connect from the browser extension API. And here's why tools like Mesh exist. And to get to this connect wallet button, here are the things we went through, and using Mesh, this is how you can do it in one line. So there can be a little bit of story like that. And of course, I think overall, before starting the front end, there's the introduction to this module should be like, that's the obvious one. Like we need a interface applications to interact with, what we are trying to build, even with smart contracts. That we need the interface, right? So that can be the introduction. And for the first thing, we can show why we are choosing the tools we are choosing, and especially in the Cardano ecosystem, why tools like Mesh.
You got me thinking about a couple things there. Thanks, Nelson. And I like the direction, Henson, Alex as well. So starting to like tie a few things together. We don't want this to derail us, right? We don't want this to turn into a course about React, certainly. And so one thing I'm wondering is like, whatever we have, probably just put it in deployment. So if nothing else, people can just see how it works. But of course, we show people, hey, here's the repo and you can run it locally. That would feel really good to me, just for people to see that. And we say, hey, of course, this is just one stack, but we're choosing this stack. And we go to Nelson's narrative, right? We're using Mesh and Next.js. They are absolutely not the only choices. But look at how convenient this connect wallet button is. It's doing some great stuff under the hood. And really, it's once you kind of have these basics, it's really nice to be able to build a little app, UI, instead of using Cardano CLI over and over again, for example. But we don't still, even with this much, we still don't have to go too deep. Why? Because we can point people to Mesh PBL. Here's Mesh PBL. And we just send people over to that, right? In this course, we'll focus mostly on the, high level concepts. Of Cardano app development. Right. So in any case, we have to wordsmith that. I don't really like these words. But the idea is, right, we're not going to go too much deeper, but if you want to, you can. And for me, what now gets interesting is imagine if the assignment or project for this module, right, is, hey, TX Pipe is working on this thing called Asteria. What we just showed you is that, look, we can build a very simple application, a faucet, right? And we can build a little front end, and there's nothing for you to do there. All we're doing is we're showing it to you and letting you play with it. But if you want to start playing around with front ends, optional assignment, we're going to be looking at Asteria together. Now, in the future, I'm imagining PPBL 2025, we might have a whole prepared version of this course that focuses on a game, right? A custom game that TX Pipe is building that helps people understand the UTXO model, right? But for now, as Asteria is still being built, we have a chance to contribute to that future development. And in part, this kind of gets at what Alex was saying. What's the best kind of course we could build? It's one that's built by the students. So what if we introduce, hey, if you like the front end part of building applications, a frontier of that is we'd like to have a simple little front end UI so that people can visualize what's happening when they play Asteria. It doesn't have to, we're not talking grade A graphics, right? A little bit of CSS and color, that's okay. Something simple, but just to start visualizing that on-chain data and playing around with whatever transactions are necessary to play this game. Can you imagine that, right? Here's a thing to play with. Want to keep going? Here's a different course. Want to contribute here? Here's an optional project.
We could provide our own projects as well.
Exactly, right? Future. Add new projects, right? Anyone can add a new project. And so let me show you something back in the application. Here's how we're thinking about this. You'll see if I jump back into Brave over here and we start looking at the modules in this course, okay? Now that we have some learning targets, we can write lessons for each of these, but here is an assignment, okay? What is a module? It's a bunch of learning targets and an assignment, okay? Now, in a lot of these, the assignment might not cover everything. For example, this one. Let's suppose that the first assignment in the course, just for getting started, is that you just have to mint a PPBL 2024 token. Oh, that's basically what Learning Target 100.4 says, right? This assignment is only measuring 2 of these learning targets. Which ones? Oh, and these are out of order. We got a few bugs to fix. But you can see it's measuring number 100.1. You're connected to the pre-prod network, and 100.4. You can mint this token. The other ones, not in green, are supporting targets, right? And we've talked about this one before. This is the famous example, knowing how to safely store your keys. As teachers, we're not going to try to measure that, but we're still going to write that that's something you should know how to do. So we now apply this to other modules. We can think about, okay, how do I create an assignment for this? Well, actually, you have some options, you have some choices, right? Maybe I want one assignment, you know, 102A could just be, 101A could just be about compiling with Plutus TX. But, did I forget to add something? Forgot to add a title. You know what, I forget. Oh, that was supposed to go here. I'm still learning how to use this app, right? Build faucet validator with Plutus TX. There we go. That's better. Okay. But maybe there's an alternative. I don't want to do it with Plutus TX. I want to do it with Aiken. Call that one 101B. And if you can, the assignment ID is taken. Right. Okay, I got to fix something. Never mind. So that's not implemented yet. This is why we're playing with it. All right, multiple assignments coming soon. But there's one bug we got to fix there. But my point is, here's the reason I wanted to show you this, is that we can ultimately have different assignments for the same module. And I think this is a really good example. We don't need everybody to do all of these. Pick one. Do the one with Plutus TX, or do the one with Aiken, or do the one with Helios. You don't have to do all of them, just pick, right? If that works, then we also have the ability for what Alex just said. Do people want to add new assignments in the future? Absolutely. Let's open up that door so people can add custom assignments and different ways to finish a module. And that gets even easier to understand once we move on to the later modules, right? Anytime we're getting more specific, think about, once again, our course outline over here. Just switching back to Notion, right? Because our time is limited, we might not provide options at first, but you can imagine building a front end showing an alternative to the TypeScript Next mesh stack might be really interesting. Ken's playing around with Elm, right? Maybe you want to build a front end in Elm. Do you have to do both? Of course you don't. You could pick one. Hey, here's some choices, right? So we can think about that's where we're going, and this flexibility over assignments is going to help to facilitate that. How do you feel about that? Would anybody want to explore Asteria together? Because I would be really excited with this narrative. Provide the PBL faucet. It doesn't matter where the validator was compiled from, right? We can just we can plug that validator in as a variable to the project. And we can have a little front end that works regardless of which one you're using. That'll just work. The code will be open for review. It'll have a super simple UI. And then we can play around with this, start to play around. And I'm excited to do this. So once we, we're still outlining the course right now. But as we move into the building phase, part of building a course, it's not about writing content. It's about hacking at something. Because if you hack around, like if we get together, we read the Asteria documentation as it exists so far, and we try to build a little front end for it, we're going to come up with our own ideas too for what we need to teach people. Writing a lesson at that point is really easy, right? You just write down your own development journey in a way that somebody else can go on the same journey. So we're getting to that point where we got to start hacking around with stuff. That's going to be really fun. And of course, everything I just said applies to these guys up here, right? We're building this faucet validator in some different ways as each of us do, we're preparing just to write a little lesson, depending on what we have there. If all of that sounds good, then only after looking at a little bit of front-end stuff and launching some forward-looking work, now we talk about minting tokens. What do you think? Does anybody want to try a counter narrative where we put minting tokens before that? Or should we play around in this order?
But what could be assignment for minting tokens? Just mint a token and that's it?
I mean, what's cool is we can go as far as we want to with that, right? Minting tokens differently from playing around with a front end template or compiling a smart contract. This creates an on-chain artifact, right? So the assignment could be really, really easy. It could just be mint a token, right? Send us the policy ID and show us that it's on-chain, right? But obviously we can make it more complicated than that if we want to. Mint a token with a Plutus validator and show us the minting transaction. We could do that, or the list could go on.
I do like the idea of giving learners access to. I still like the token that you minted for me like 2 years ago. It doesn't have any attachments, to it. It's just simple minting policy hash. But yeah, maybe we could kind of add this as a provisional element for the future to have at some like. So yeah, to provide students with a Gimbalabs themed NFT, which would have a unified policy hash. Is it possible to do actually like to mint from the same? Yeah, I think it's possible.
We say what? With what?
So to have like tokens minted from the same minting contract, but in like different times, so that like students that come, they still.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to put a time constraint on a minting policy. You can leave it open-ended.
Mm.
Yeah. And remember, people have already minted a token on pre-prod. That's the first thing they do when they come here. But at this stage, we didn't show them anything about how it worked, right? They were just going to be using a little UI to play around. And now we get down,
all right.
right? And now we can say, hey, hey, remember module 100? Now we're going to show you how to mint that token.
How it works under
Yep.
the hood. But then it's kind of you repeat the same task. Maybe it makes sense to kind of think about what could be. Well, we don't have to think before we had a token gated faucet.
You've
Like-
already seen a whole application. Yeah, you minted a token, you played with an app, you even got to see under the hood of how that front end of that app works. Now let's go a step further under the hood and talk about how did we mint that token in the first place? And we can jump into that. And we haven't written learning targets here, right? There are dozens of specifics that we could include in this module, but we have to limit ourselves to, some number of learning targets. What's our biggest module so far? 6 different learning targets, right? So we don't have to have a strict upper limit, but I think it shouldn't be, I think 12 would be a lot, for example. Ken, what are you thinking?
I was just wondering, like, if between if you're going to choose an order for the 201 and 202, would that determine your strategy as to whether there's any prerequisites from one to the other, or are they totally separate without having any prerequisites? And if that's the case, then why not allow people to do them in either order?
Great question. Right. And that could be, right? So I think at a high level, one thing we want to communicate to everybody is, if you want to skip around in the 200 modules, go for it. Right. And we're not formally going to implement any prerequisite gates inside of this course yet. Right. That's something we want to build, but that should be used, thoughtfully. And I think here there's no reason to force people to do things in any order. That said, if minting tokens came first, I don't think I would include mesh here, right? It's easier to show people minting in mesh if they've already been exposed to an example of a spending transaction in mesh like we have right here. So for me, that's one practical reason that it can go in this order. And even if people do skip around, at least when they get here, we'll be able to say, oh, this was covered in module 201, and now we're going to show you a little bit more about it. This Notion file is right here. I'll drop it in the chat directly. And I think it's enabled for commenting. Yeah, so anybody who's logged in should be able to add comments here if you want to. And remember, if you want to try making an Andamio account, we can get you set up as a contributor to the course. Nelson, what do you say?
I'm just thinking about one thing that I feel like is missing, is where we tell students the difference between native scripts and Java scripts. Is that covered
nice.
anywhere?
Great. Yeah. Yeah, this is great.
And I think this should be like a highlight of, it should be a major part of the course, right? A major concept in the course.
Right. And I think we already have copy about this in the 23 course. So we can do some cutting and pasting to start here. But yeah, here's something you need to understand. Script means a couple of different things. One, native versus Plutus. Minting helps us show what this means. That's the kind of idea. Yeah, and so you're right, it does really need to be highlighted. But where could it go anywhere earlier? Right? Like here we're talking about smart contracts. At the end of the day, this is a validator script. But is that part of the story that we want to tell here? Or is it okay if we wait until we dig into minting to highlight it here?
Yeah, I don't have a big opinion, but I think we shouldn't make the first module more bigger than it is.
Yeah, I think for me, this is a mind-blowing concept. Oh, I can make a policy ID out of this or this. Holy cow. But I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't ready to understand that concept until I got to a certain point in my journey. So hopefully by the time we show this to people and we do make a big deal out of it, everybody's going to be like, all right, wow, that makes sense. And it's our job to get people to that point. Yeah, play with the front end, mint some tokens a bunch of different ways, query the blockchain. That's important. validators, people have to understand datum redeemer and context. And then one thing we haven't touched here, for example, is now where would metadata fit? And the thinking so far is 201, 202, 3. The thinking so far is maybe to continue to relate that to the SIP process, right? Equals metadata, TX metadata, and the SIP process. So we get to touch on two other things. Now, I think this, whatever we do about NFTs, I think it could fit anywhere here. I think it could be 203, 204, or 205. Show the front end, show token minting. Now we've got 3 more things we want to take you through: queries, validators, and NFTs. They really can happen in any order. Anybody have a story, a specific story that would help us put these in a clear order, or do we treat these as kind of modular and unique and let people go through in any order?
So coming back to the Helios example and what they have as a front-end template or front-end example is a marketplace. And minting tokens and minting NFTs and metadata and validator essentials maybe are connected through the idea of a marketplace.
Mhm.
What do you think?
Yep. I think that's a great example of a project, and we should keep thinking of many different through lines, right? If the Helios book already shows people a marketplace, we might just want to give people a link to that instead of reinventing something that already exists, right? On the other hand, if we want to show people how to build a marketplace, but we're agnostic to the language, right? We don't want to force them to read a Helios book to learn how to implement the marketplace in one particular language, but we want to show people, hey, here's the component parts of a marketplace. Let's survey the landscape so you can get this high level understanding. I could see that really working, right? Because that's the most important part for me right here, right? More than anything, when we talk about the front end, we want to show people that this is independent of what language you're using to write the validators themselves. You have a bunch of choices here, and whatever choices you make here, certainly there are some integrations that go direct from one to another easier, and people should know that, right? But we want you to know that no matter what you do here, once you have that compiled contract or validator, sorry, you could start over, right? And so what you can use any front end you want, and you can integrate it with any compiled CBOR. Okay.
Right.
So I want people to really get that part, and that's why it's important, right? We don't lean on any one particular example that's too tied to like one language.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. So that's what I'm suggesting actually. So we have a readily available example in Helios. So what we could do to unite this 202, 203, 204, and 205 together, we could say these come together in this application, but because it's implemented in TypeScript, there are difficulties such and such. We could think them up.
Mhm.
And in particular, there will be probably difficulties with the audit and certification because you won't be able to achieve the level of certification you would otherwise be if you were using Rust, Aiken, or Haskell Plutus TX or like Plutar. So it could be like, here's an example which is for learning and for practice, but you cannot really use it in a real business case. So if you want to build a real business case, your kind of assignment is to rebuild it in a secure language toolchain of
Right.
your choice.
Right. And for that reason, right, the fact that we're not trying to build for production, that's why personally, I would rather experiment with a game than even pretend to build a marketplace. But that's just me personally, right? So this is where, as a team, we can start implementing different projects that give people choice throughout, right? I really, I would be much more engaged as a teacher if we were taking it from this game approach and integrating with the rest of the ecosystem. But if you're lit up by building a marketplace, you should. And now we're giving our students options.
Right, yeah. Fair enough. I don't mind, it would be cool to look at Asteria and to see what the folks are doing. I'm actually planning to join the meetings once in a while in TXPy.
Good. All right, well, we still have some options ahead. We're almost ready to start writing some learning targets for these, and we can jump in to Andamio to do that. We can start writing the lesson content. Juan, I see. Yeah. Juan, if you make an account there, let me know that you've got it, and I'll show you the next step. Okay. And yeah, we'll pick that up tomorrow.
Yeah, I got the account.
You got it?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'll give you guys a link offline. There is one more step you have to do to sign up to be a creator, and it's silly and simple, but I'll save that. Let's take a quick look at that tomorrow because I want to have time for a quick checkout round right now. Juan, how you leaving us today?
Very excited. Let me just open my camera. Yeah, very excited about this. I think it's the kind of beginning. Super nice and very impressed with the work that you guys have been done. And yeah, very excited.
Thanks, Juan. Sebastian, how you leaving us today?
Very good, very good. Seeing all the progress in our in the several tasks. Really good. Thanks a lot.
Nice partner. Alex, how about you?
Yeah, I'm all right. I want to turn on camera because it's like 30 degrees and I took my shirt off. All right. It's interesting. Yeah, we're building the course slowly and I like where this is going. Yeah.
Woo! Hinson.
Yeah, okay. Keep building. Probably tomorrow.
Every day. Ken, how about you?
Yeah, it looks good. It looks like it's gonna be fun to see where this goes.
Thanks. And Claudio.
Well, good. I'm glad to see how it's taking shape. Looks really interesting and promising. So I look forward to see how it evolves. How I can contribute a bit more myself later.
Can't wait. I'm looking forward to it too. And Nelson.
Yeah, thanks everyone. I think we covered some interesting topics today in the beginning too. So yeah, that was great. Thanks.
Thanks. And Harsha.
It was a really productive 40 minutes for me. So yeah, I was working on the homepage. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Wow, great energy. Yeah, thanks everybody. Feeling excited where this course is going to, and excited to get some lessons on the page. That's where we're getting. All right, same time tomorrow. For anybody checking this out as a recording, we meet Wednesdays and Thursdays, starting at 14:30 UTC for open spaces. We're building stuff. We're starting to make decisions together and hopefully doing some impactful work. Catch you soon, everybody. See ya.
See you.